Hey bees, I'm Marie from Humblebee and Me, and today we are making some beautiful rose spice bath bombs. So bath bombs are basically a dry version of that baking soda and vinegar volcano that you used to make when you were in science class in elementary school, except instead of using vinegar, we're using citric acid, which is great because it smells much nicer than vinegar in your bath water. These bath bombs smell like roses and cardamom, and they get their color in this batch from some rose powder. Unfortunately, the rose powder turned out to be a little bit browner than I was expecting, so if you want more of a pink bath bomb, turn to something like a beetroot powder or a hibiscus powder or even rosehip powder. You can also, of course, use carmine, FD&C red number 7, or even a red iron oxide. But bath bombs are a fun place to use some of those botanical extracts that I know a lot of us have collected because they look like they'll be really, really useful, and then it turns out that they're kind of not, because if you put them in soap, the saponification reaction tends to turn them brown. And if you put them in cosmetics, they have almost no actual pigment to them on your skin, so that's kind of a bummer. And then they're water soluble, so you can't really put them in any balms or anything because they come out really, really gritty. So they actually end up being pretty darn perfect for bath bombs. Because they are water soluble, the pigment just dissolves into your bath water and washes down the drain. So you don't have to worry about sort of scrubbing out any solid pigments from your tub, and it works out really, really well. This sort of mild, faint color is beautiful in bath bombs, but it's not going to dye your bath water. And yeah, on the whole, this is probably one of the best uses I've found for sort of tinted botanical extracts. To make bath bombs, we'll basically just mix together our dry ingredients, and we will take a little sort of detour at the beginning to blend some of our wetter ingredients, like our essential oils, into a bit of the baking soda first, so that those ingredients are nicely dispersed, so that when we add the citric acid, that doesn't cause the citric acid and the baking soda to start react, because they will start to react once they are wet. So once we have a big bowl of uniform powder, we'll start mixing it with some witch hazel. And you want to add just enough witch hazel that when you press together, they'll start to fuse together and hold together. You really want to go with sort of like less is more, like the smallest amount that you think will work. Obviously, if you bung it up, it's not that big of a deal. You'll find that the bath bombs will swell as they dry, and that's kind of a bummer, but they'll still fizz when you throw them in the water. They just sort of won't be as pretty and they won't fizz as much. It's a bit of a learning process, but you know, you can't go too far wrong. Okay, let's go make some bath bombs. So we're going to start by incorporating some of our wet ingredients into a bit of baking soda using a mini food processor here. So in here I have a cup of baking soda, and so that's the total amount we'll need for the recipe. And I'm not sure if I'll need all of it to incorporate the wet ingredients into, so I'm just going to spoon some out into here to start with. So some of our wet ingredients include, of course, our essential oils. So we're going to be doing 10 drops of lavender, 2 drops of rose absolute, and 5 drops of cardamom. We're also going to add some rose powder. So in the recipe on my blog, I use beetroot powder for this, but I've since acquired rose powder. So if you have beetroot powder, I recommend using a teaspoon because it's much stronger of a colorant. But if you have rose powder, use a tablespoon. You could also use hibiscus powder or rosehip powder, any sort of pinkish, reddish botanical powder you might have acquired because you thought it would be useful for cosmetics, and they aren't. That is definitely where my collection came from. And then we're going to be adding a bit of turkey red oil as well. So this is a oil that will self-disperse in our bath water, so we don't have to worry about oil slicks, which is nice. I'm going to add a bit more of this on top. This is the baking soda. And we'll pop our lid on here and blend this up. So I can see that the oil here has formed a layer and there's some untouched baking soda. So I'm gonna go in there with this spoon and give this a stir. So now I'm going to transfer this mixture into our main mixing bowl. You wanna make sure that you are choosing a nice, wide, shallow mixing bowl, because that will allow you to disperse the liquid from the bath bombs as evenly as possible and as widely as possible. So here we have our citric acid. So we're going to add this to our baking soda mixture. This is half a cup of citric acid. And we also have half a cup of Epsom salts. So I like to leave the Epsom salts out of the grinder because they have a lovely sparkle to them. And if you grind them up, they lose that. So once you have all of your dry ingredients nicely incorporated here, we're going to start misting the mixture with witch hazel. So you want to make sure that you've started off by spreading this mixture out as much as possible. As soon as this gets wet, it will start to react. So we want to make sure that it gets sort of as unwet as possible. We don't want to pour a bunch of liquid in here. We want to mist it over top. We're using witch hazel because the bath bombs tend to dry faster when you use witch hazel and react less. So you'll need a surprisingly small amount of witch hazel, but we're going to mist and stir quite quickly here. So at about the 10 to 15 spritz mark, you're going to start testing it. So grab a bit and give it a squeeze. That's actually pretty darn good. Yeah, I think I'm going to stop there. This is definitely the trickiest part about making bath bombs, is deciding when to stop adding liquid, because if you add too much, they will react, like the powder will react with itself after you press it into your little bath bombs, and then they will sort of mushroom and grow on you. So here I have a sheet of parchment paper that I'm going to be tapping them out onto, and for a mold, I'm keeping it super simple and just using a 1/4 cup measuring cup. You can, of course, buy special bath bomb molds, but if you don't make a lot of bath bombs like me, or you just, I don't know, would rather spend your money on essential oils or something, these things work great. So you're just going to slowly add powder to the measuring cup or to your mold, and then use the meaty part of your hand to just like really pack it in there. And then we're going to tap it out. There you go. Remove the dog hair and repeat. All right, so there we are. That's all pressed out. So there's a really good sign that we've added the right amount of moisture, because you can see here, these first ones that I've tapped out haven't started swelling. And so I could have made this last one a little bit bigger, but I wanted to leave some powder in there so that we could add some water to it and see how it fizzes up. You can definitely hear it fizzling and sizzling away, and it smells awesome. So now that's all that's really left to do, is to leave these guys to dry for about 24 hours. You'll notice that they've shrunk a little bit and they should no longer feel cool to the touch. And after that, you are ready to get your balmy bath on. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and check the description box below for the full written recipe, links to this recipe on my blog, and everything else that you need to make this recipe. See you next time.